Hello, thank you for watching. Hello, hello. Um, in this video, we're going to be going through Thich Nhat Hanh's Be Free Where You Are. I'm almost at the end of this lovely little book. Been reading it nice and slowly, and I have some more quotes for you. This book is really valuable because he talks about how you can become free from things like anxiety, loneliness, anger, and despair. And there are very practical ways that you can do so and attain what he calls freedom, which is freedom from suffering. So let's dive right in with another quote, shall we? All right. Now he's talking about his mindfulness practice here and your mindfulness practice. Practice regularly. Once your practice becomes a habit, you will feel as though you're missing something when you don't do it. It will bring you well-being and stability. It will have a good effect on your health as well. This is the best kind of protection you can offer yourself. I always think that the energy of mindfulness is the energy of the Buddha, the energy of God, the Holy Spirit that is inside of us, protecting us all the time. Each time you touch the seed of mindfulness and practice mindful breathing, the energy of God, the energy of the Buddha is there to protect you. So I thought that was a really powerful, powerful passage. And he talks about this elsewhere in the book, about this idea of mindfulness and compassion being very protective elements, and how they are, in his mind, equal to, this God-like or Buddha-like energy within us. And I just want to speak about my personal experiences with this recently. So recently, it's been a time of great growth and change for me. I moved across the world, or at least across the Atlantic Ocean, to Lisbon, Portugal, where I'm staying now. And yeah, it's been a big adjustment period, and plenty of new emotions have been popping up. Plenty of loneliness and anxiety among them, along with the desire to connect with other people. And what I've been noticing is that when I am able to be mindful throughout my day, I notice these emotions coming up and I can smile at them, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, and I can welcome them. I'm currently doing a class, it's an 8-week class called Original Love with Henry Schuckman. I could be mispronouncing that. But he is a Zen teacher who I really love because his approach is so compassionate, just like Thich Nhat Hanh. There's so much compassion and love in their teachings. And so what I do is when one of these emotions comes up, like loneliness, I say, oh, like, hey, loneliness, like you're welcome here. And I welcome you. And what I've noticed is that when you're able to maintain your mindfulness throughout the day and have it more or less be a constant presence with you, when emotions arise, you greet them more or less instantly. We'll say within a few seconds of them arising, versus when I'm not being mindful and not practicing, these emotions are just in the background, kind of simmering, and I'm not aware of them until I like journal or smoke some weed or talk to a friend and really check in with myself. And by that time, I find that the emotion has grown in strength to the point where it's quite challenging to work with that energy. Versus today, for example, I had so many different emotions come up. I had the anxiety, the loneliness, the desire to connect. And each time I noticed it rather quickly and I said, like, hello, loneliness, you're welcome. And I would imagine like my hands opening and this feeling of like warmth spreading through my body. And it's like a night and day difference, because instead of that emotion continuing to fester, if you will, in the background, it feels addressed, it feels heard, and it's able to disperse and let go. And I have a lot of confidence. I don't know if that's the right word, but I think these emotions will come again and again because these are some of my patterns. These are what Thich Nhat Hanh calls your habit energy. And these energies are things that are often passed down through generational trauma, or at the very least, our childhood, our culture, our environment. So they're not even necessarily parts of ourself as much as they are parts of our experience. But by being welcoming and by recognizing them and by using mindfulness, there's a very great protective effect. And the protective effect isn't like we're fighting or like we're defending or that we're angry. It's simply the protection of awareness and seeing what is arising and then saying, oh, like I see that. And because you see it, you don't get wrapped up in the story. You don't get dragged along this path with the emotion. Instead, you're able to see it, to smile, and to let go, or rather, it lets itself go because it feels seen. So it's very practical. It's been helping me quite a bit. And yeah, another practice that comes along with that is noticing. So Henry Schuckman calls this like you're noticing that you have almost a projector. So whenever you have a thought, like right now, think of an orange, right? You see this visual image of some sort of orange, and it may be blurry or indistinct. It may not be that crisp or clear, but you see something there if you try. And a lot of times when we have thoughts, there's also an auditory component to the thought in addition to the visual. So if you're thinking about a conversation that you had with somebody, you might remember seeing their face and then you hear what they said. And both of those things are what thoughts consist of, in addition to emotions at times. And we already talked about the emotional component, which is welcoming. But with the thought component, what I've been practicing is simply being aware of that internal screen and being aware of my internal ears, if you will, your mental dialogue ears, because I've noticed that when I'm monitoring that and I'm aware of that, I'm able to see things. And just like with emotions dragging you along, I'll have thought patterns that will drag me along if I don't notice them. And they have a lot of power and force. I'll just be sitting there working. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should go apply for a visa in Italy. And a whole like train of thought, oh, I love Italian food. That'd be so romantic, blah, 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 blah. And I find that if I can recognize it at the beginning, then it tends to disperse. And I come back to being present and being here and now, which is what I want to be. Versus if I'm not able to offer myself that protection, I've heard this referred to in the Buddhist literature as guarding the sense gates, all these doors of perception, as Huxley would say. I never read the book, I just know the title. All these doors of perception, we can feel the sensations, we can sense these thoughts, we can hear the thoughts, we can have the emotional sense. If we're guarding those doors, so to speak, with our kind and loving awareness, there is protection there. And it's not an offense, but that saying that the best defense is good offense applies here, because we're addressing things, we're almost cutting them off at the source. There's a line in the Tao Te Ching, either way, there's a line in that amazing book that says, it's easier to deal with things when they're small than when they're large. And that just means that with our emotions and with these mental states, if we can see the seed of them rising up and address them, then they don't flower into something that's potentially much more painful and difficult to work with. So I hope that's really helpful for you. I'll be back here tomorrow with some more quotes from Thich Nhat Hanh, and I really appreciate you watching. Thank you.